You guys cannot hear me? You can hear. Great, that was enough. Thanks, you guys can hear me. Well, okay, I've prepared a presentation focusing on the 3 secret ingredients on how can you guys recruit developers, like more developers with confidence. This is what I live and breathe recently. This is what I focus on, and I would love to share some of these insights. All right. So since you may not know me yet, I'll quickly introduce myself. All right. I have a few slides prepared here, so I'll start sharing my screen. Okay. So the 3 secret ingredients, as a reminder, what you will learn during this 55 minutes, how to increase conversions of your job descriptions, and we are focusing on IT roles. Okay, so technical positions. How to use some of the most confusing IT terms. I know IT is confusing, so we will find a way how can you actually get some advantage. You know, how to take it to your advantage, and how to attract software developers. Now, you know, I speak quite a lot about tech, and I focus on IT for the last 15 years roughly. So I've been an IT consultant, I was a developer, I have co-founded startups, one in Europe and one in Asia, scaled them, well, I mean the second one especially. You know, I had a team of developers. I always recruited the developers myself. That's what startups do anyway, right? When I was a CTO, I pretty much had to figure it all out by myself, because we were just a small startup at first. Eventually we fundraised about $11 million, but you know, at some point things got easier as we had money on the account. But at first I really had to struggle. I had to figure out how to attract the developers, how to attract talents, how to even hire developers, how to source them, where to find them. So I couldn't really use any external recruiter because we couldn't have afforded. This was back in Thailand, like 6 years ago, roughly. So that was new country, new colleagues, and I was a CTO trying to figure out how to source developers without any external budget for recruitment agencies. You know, as soon as I started approaching developers, I realized I had to, you know, keep track of my response rate, like how to target the right developers, how to change the message, how to improve our employer brand, how to eventually interview candidates, how to ask the right questions, how to assess them. Okay, so this is all what I've been doing and overcoming in the last 5, 6, 7 years as a CTO. I also remember at Hotel Quickly in Bangkok, we've organized events to actually attract developers, attract candidates. And this was really heaven on earth for me as a technical person, as a CTO. I remember once we've organized this event for 150 developers, like really huge event for 2 days, a hackathon, really, really great. What was really cool is that I could just go and talk to them and ask about their projects, but there were far too many people. So I asked our HR manager, who was really great at recruiting and hiring non-technical roles. So everyone except IT people. And I asked him to come and help me in this event. And I saw how his confidence plummeted literally quickly, because he didn't know what to ask them. He didn't know anything about technologies. He didn't know anything about the tech stacks they worked with. So that was a very frustrating experience for him. And it eventually brought me to this idea, like, hey, maybe I can teach him something. Maybe I can explain some of these concepts and topics. And that's what eventually I did, and that was the trigger for me to eventually build these training programs for recruiters, for non-tech savvy people. Because, you know, there are so many people, especially I meet recently, who are so confused from all those terms, like, for example, software developer, software engineer, or the difference between a data scientist, a data engineer, or business analyst and a system analyst, or a CTO, CR, like so many confusing terms for people who have not been exposed to IT. And as a result, there is this inefficient cooperation. Like I was a CTO, right, and I was waiting for someone to come and help me build the team. But the recruiters in Thailand, I tried to work, or I tried to engage with, they just couldn't understand the differences between the roles and technologies. And also there are these jokes online about recruiters who don't know the difference between Java and JavaScript, etc. Right? So that's very frustrating. And we try to bridge these two worlds between developers and recruiters eventually. We do it by laying like really strong foundation. So this is also what we will be talking about. Like how can you use some of these really difficult technical terms to your advantage? How to learn about some of these. And that will eventually help you interact with developers, like the one HR manager during the hackathon, or behave more professionally. Because at the end of the day, as a recruiter, as an internal HR person, you need to look confident. You need to be able to ask questions during a meeting with a developer. You need to be able to assess developers even before you send them to a hiring manager, right? So this will help you demonstrate knowledge about the positions and technologies. So coming to the three secrets, how to increase conversions is actually one part of the training. Like how can you really go through the job descriptions and rewrite them? We do it with teams of recruiters in different countries, because this is just so common problem. And usually it looks like this. We receive a job description like this, say on the left. And this is a real case study. I received this job description actually from a friend of mine who was looking for a backend PHP developer. And she sent me this job description with just so much fluff, nothing really interesting, nothing exciting about the company, nothing interesting about the tech stack, just written obvious things. And then she wondered, like, why we cannot get really anyone in the last 2 months to apply. And someone like, say, me or other CTOs that we also interview inside the RECRUITMENT Academy just looks at it and is like, oh, that's obvious. And I believe it's obvious because they sort of subconsciously know what is important and what is not, while recruiters just need to learn what is important and what is not. So what we, I don't want to go really line by line, just to show you an example and something you guys need to be aware of. When, for example, you describe a position, like we are looking for a PHP developer responsible for managing backend services and interchange of data, etc. Like if you talk to a PHP developer, like pretty much everyone is responsible for managing backend services and the interchange of data, because PHP, in fact, is a language used to build websites, right? So there is a backend, and pretty much every website on the planet, except the static ones, but most of the websites are dynamic, so they interact with some data. So we like to look at what is unique about the role, about the company, about the technical stack. And here they just write obvious, pretty much. What is obvious? It's like, we are looking for a recruiter who will speak English and who will be able to sign in our CRM system, and who will be able to sign a document, or like super obvious things. Like you don't really talk about it. All right, I'll move on. And nothing really interesting about the technical stack except two things. So the language, which is PHP, and the framework, which is Symfony. So usually we try to extract what really matters most to developers. And I can literally talk to a PHP developer and say, hey, it's PHP and Symfony, or PHP Laravel. And that's it. Like, he doesn't need to know all these fluff, like understanding MVC design patterns, knowledge of object-oriented. Like that's just so common. So usually we rewrite, and we do it even as an exercise, but this was a real case study. And I rewrote it to this concise job advertisement, as we like to call it. So we shift from the super boring job description to a job ad, where we like to really think through what is important, what matters most. Like here, Jana is looking for a full stack PHP developer. It's written in Symfony. There is obviously backend front-end database, as you would expect, like nothing more needed. We also like to talk a little about the company, but especially focus on what type of a company is it. Is it a corporation? Is it a startup? Is it an agency? Is it a product-centric company? Like each of these have their specifics. We can actually talk about it later if you guys would like. Maybe you can ask a question in the chat if you'd like to me to dive deeper in any of the directions. So here it's important to mention it's a funded startup because startups can also be just without money, and startup founders may expect developers work for free for the first. Long story short, we mentioned funded startup with an MVP. MVP is again important, minimum viable product. Some startups don't even have an MVP. So it indicates, a technical person can immediately imagine where in the lifetime the startup is. Is it prior to funding? No, it's already funded. Do they have an MVP? Yes, they have. Do they have, customers? Most likely not, because I haven't mentioned it here. Okay, and then some other important elements like something that will tease the developer. It's likely you will learn how to build a company along the way because the team has already built other companies. So this is a very concise job ad that actually attracted the right developer, and within a week, without any additional promoting, without any additional budget, like just by attracting the right person, we've been able to fill the role. So that was really cool. On the contrary, sometimes you have like super boring job description. And if you think about, for example, a C++ software developer, and this is a job description that you can find on the web, right? We are looking for a C++ developer, somebody English speaking, place of work Prague, or they should work on intelligent power manager infra project, which we have no clue what it actually is. Requirements C, C++ shell. Like now, let's try to step into the developer's shoes. Like C or C++ developers are in high demand, and we need to really advertise them, right? These days, there is this shift from inbound to outbound, and imagine you send this job description to a C++ developer. Like there is zero chance this will attract him or her unless he's really, in some pain, or he lost his job, which it's how likely it is, right? Sometimes we see job descriptions with just listing what is already obvious. Git, here they mention we require someone with experience with Git. Like every single company pretty much these days use Git. Every senior developer, they're looking for a senior JavaScript developer. So who doesn't these days know Git, right? Why not to rather focus on what is really important for the JavaScript developer? What usually is the framework. What framework do they use? What is exciting about the project? Do they collect huge amounts of data? Do they process it? Do they use cloud, etc.? Like, so many different angles instead of just listing what is already obvious. Instead, we like to go through a little checklist and apply some just marketing, right? It's about understanding developers. What do they want? What attracts them? So this is what we also usually do when we go through the developer personas, and we look at who they are, what are they interested in, and then we try to rewrite the super boring job description to something they are likely to respond positively. And this was actually an example about the email sent, and this was literally just happening yesterday. This is from one of our webinars where we work with teams of recruiters in different countries, and we try to help them increase the response rate. And sometimes it's just so obvious as soon as you look at it. So here, for example, this recruiter was going, actually she already wrote lots of emails like this to developers who were full stack developers. So this is a subject, opportunity full stack developer, Munich, Germany. Like, hey, my name is, and I'm a recruiter. We are looking for full stack developer to join. If you're interested, we can have a call via Skype, what works best. Like nothing more. There was no attachment, nothing more interesting about the job. And if you think about it, full stack developers may receive 10, 20, I know developers who receive 20, 30 job offers every week. So if you think about it, like how can this attract, this is immediately discarded. Nothing more about the full stack. What does it mean full stack? Like usually when we go through the technology map, we see what full stack is, what kind of languages can be used for full stack. Like even Golang is used for full stack, or Elixir, or C# can be used to build full stack, or PHP. So the developer maybe like, yeah, well, who cares about just generic information full stack? It's like looking for a recruiter without knowing which industry the recruiter will work in, right? Is it IT or healthcare or manufacturing or sales recruiter? And if you just look at the email, she always talks about herself. Like, hey, my name is, I'm from this company, we are looking for. So it's pretty much all about her and her desire to find someone. I usually like to think about the persona, which in this case maybe PHP developer using maybe say Zend, and which we could see on his profile on maybe LinkedIn or GitHub. And then I try to find an angle that would be interesting for him. For example, hey, we have a client who is looking for a full stack PHP developer using Laravel. So you may want to switch from Zend to Laravel, because you already know, or we can actually train you, that Zend is already fading out and Laravel is the trending PHP framework. So just by having this understanding, you can really compile something that is really obvious to technical people, to CTOs, to hiring managers, to IT directors, to technical leaders in general. And you would not write emails like this one. This was another example. Like, hey, how are you? I've seen your profile and I think I could share with you some interesting remote opportunity. Please find below information on the company, platform that connects, project, browser. And I'm not saying there is anything like fundamentally wrong, just like it's just so long. It continued. We cannot see it here on the screenshot, but it continued further. And these days, when developers are just looking for some cool, not just developers, but everyone who is these days on social media has so short attention time span. We just need to write, some concise, to the point information, and not the fluff. So she was wondering, hey, how come I sent 50 emails and only 2 people respond? Well, it's obvious. So we like to look at the emails and think about the persona and what interests this persona. So this is actually also the reason why we interview developers, we interview CTOs who share how do they feel, how do they think about some of these job descriptions. So sometimes it's really eye-opening to talk to a developer who looks at it and is like, yeah, well, I've received 30 of these this week. So yeah, I'll just discard it, like zack. And it's also good to keep in mind that every company, like every type of the company has its specifics. I already mentioned it. There is, for example, a startup or a corporation or a product-centric company. So they have their specifics that developers are usually interested in. So for example, in a corporation, there may be more legacy code, but usually it's more stable environment. Or in a startup, developers may choose the technical stack, they may influence the technologies. So just by knowing some of these elements, some of these attributes, you may adjust your messaging. So, hey, we are looking for a full stack developer to join a startup. They have not decided which stack they will use. So it's a great opportunity for you to bring on the experience you have and help them decide, to help them influence, or to help influence the, well, to help influence, but you know what I mean, right? You can just create something that is super attractive for the person on the other hand. Also, for example, cross-functional teams. We talk about cross-functional teams quite a lot. and how to attract developers to join these cross-functional teams. So some teams, say technical teams, are more, they go deeper in the technology. For example, sometimes teams are structured around the technology. So there is a team of backend developers, team of front-end developers, a team of, designers. But sometimes there are these agile cross-functional teams, right? So again, you adjust the communication based on the type of the team. And even from my experience, lots of developers are interested in the team, in their teammates, because that's what impacts their life on a daily basis, right? It's not, sometimes I see on job description written that the company description says, hey, we're looking for a developer to join our company that has a headquarters in Zurich and offices in London, Paris, New York, Tokyo. And I'm thinking, like, why is this relevant for a developer if you are hiring someone, say, in Slovakia or in Vienna, or sometimes it's in some obscure tiny little city. So it's even, I would say, more annoying to the developer to know that everyone else is in these cool destinations and he's stuck in this obscure place. So let's try to do a better job in stepping into their shoes, figuring out what they do, learning a little more about technologies, the whole IT world, and then recruitment is actually really easy because you know how to talk to them, how to approach them. We also like to look at these like matches, then how to match a certain persona to a certain company and how to talk to them. So this is just another example from one of my workshops where I talk about these 4 types of agencies and then what are their attributes. Now, takeaway for you is to rethink how you see the job description. So a job description, in my view, was meant to be an internal document used by internal HR, but it's often a mistake that external recruiter just gets the job description because mostly they don't understand the content, so they just post it to a job board, and this is a huge mistake because it's not attractive at all. It's super boring. It doesn't focus on the developer, on the persona. It just talks about the internal role. So for you, the takeaway would be to rethink, to learn a little more about the technologies, about the developer personas, so you can create these job ads eventually, job ads and teasers. This is actually what we practice during some of our master classes. All right, the secret number 2, how to use some of the most confusing IT terms to your advantage while demonstrating your knowledge and expertise. So what are some of the most confusing terms? When I work with recruiters, usually I notice IT roles are really confusing. Like obviously there are these acronyms, but mostly it's about IT roles. So there is a UX designer, UI designer, and there is a new role, CX designer, so customer experience designer. And there is system analyst, business analyst, backend developer, full stack developer, or even web developer and front-end developer, right? Like some of them may be junior, some of them may be more senior, and there are different technologies they use. So you need to learn what kind of technologies they do, so you actually are able to talk to them. We usually start with the mind map, and I would totally recommend to practice this even after we finish this webinar. So we usually like to talk about their challenges, desires, tools, and duties. So as an example, say we focus on a product owner. So we usually start with, hey, what do we know about these roles? This is the first question. What do we even know about this role of a product owner? And this is something you can practice in your teams. Just have these 3 questions and answer them. What do we know about this role? Well, we know that product owner is a role defined by Scrum methodology. So Scrum is one of the agile methodologies. So agile is not a methodology. Scrum is a methodology. A product owner is responsible for prioritizing the backlog, for the product roadmap, and as soon as we know some of these, we can proceed to the next question. So, what tools, what languages, what methods do they use? This particular person. So, this person may use, for example, say a tool like AHA it's actually called AHA, an exclamation mark. A tool like AHA to manage the product's roadmap. But they may work with tools like Confluence or maybe Jira, right, to take care of the backlog. And what could we ask now? What could we ask during just random water cooler discussions? So say during a meetup, like I showed you at the beginning, or during an interview. So you can immediately brainstorm a few questions, and I've seen this really helpful. Because as soon you need to practice. Recruitment is like marketing and sales, right? So you need to practice before you are exposed to the real situation. So we usually go through these exercises with recruiters, and in many cases it's really eye-opening, because they're like, oh yeah, I know about product owner, but when I ask them, I say, what do you know about the product owner? Like, well, so like they cannot really explain it. So as a result, it's also difficult to ask a really good question next time they meet a product owner, right? So the only thing they can ask eventually is just, so how was your day? It's like you don't demonstrate your knowledge, you don't demonstrate your expertise. You can, for example, ask, because a product owner works in a Scrum team, and you can also learn. We actually talk about this quite a lot. You would learn that Scrum teams organize daily stand-ups, retrospectives. So you immediately have a few questions to ask. You can ask a product owner, like, hey, how do you work with or how do you organize stand-ups with developers working remotely? Or how do you you can ask, for example, about challenges. So what was the most challenging situation in regards to different stakeholders having different opinions about the features? Because you know that there are different stakeholders, everyone has lots of ideas, and they are coming up with ideas to add to the product roadmap. You can ask about the retrospective, like, hey, how does your team organize retrospectives? What have you learned during the most recent retrospective? So you immediately have several questions in your arsenal, and you can just start shooting as soon as you meet or interview a product owner. And there are so many roles, like you can see here, that we usually practice with. I just picked the product owner, and there are so many, like a Scrum Master, a CTO. But certainly, I'll copy these questions. So if you'd like to just practice it yourself, you can. I'll paste them in the chat window. Second question and third. And just go row by row within your team. I've usually organized it, say, every 2 weeks. We go through 5 or 10 rows, and that's really helpful, especially when I see different team members work together and brainstorm. That really helps the team to realize, like, hey, we need to keep learning constantly, because in IT everything evolves. Many of these roles are just so mainstream, but new roles are popping up, like I don't know, a blockchain developer, right, or a machine learning developer. Like, so many new roles. So by today, in 2019, recruiters should know at least what we see here on this screen, because this is mainstream for the last 5 years, 10 years. Okay, the secret number 3: how to attract software developers with this simple yet powerful phrase: just filling the blanks and watch your conversions increase. So I really use this phrase, and not only when talking to developers, but even when say I approach like recruiters or recruitment leaders, when I promote some of my webinars or some products, because it just so much makes sense. And this has been here for, I don't know, gazillions of years. So it's nothing new. It's just good to realize this, and eventually to use it subconsciously. So hold a second on this one. So this is it. So if you are and you want, then it's again important to be aware of these personas, to know about the technologies, because only then you can come up with these sentences. So coming up with the example with the startup, right? So you can say, if you are a PHP developer using Symfony, and you are tired of the corporate environment, you may want to join a startup here in Bratislava, in Slovakia. Okay, so you obviously you don't have to follow the sentence like word by word. You can adjust it. You can say, if you are a PHP developer and you want to join a fast-growing startup, then I've got an interesting opportunity for you. Or you can say, if you are a senior Symfony developer and you want to shift from an employment to freelancer or freelance contractor, then you may want to consider this company that is hiring developers just like you. Okay, so usually we look at a few job descriptions. We look at who are they, I mean the clients or the company, who are they looking for, and who would be a good fit. So in many ways, you need to get better at reading between the lines, because you need to come back to the table here. Like, who would be a good fit, for example, for a startup? Like, it's people who are keen to grow professionally. It's people who like to experiment. People who want to take ownership of their actions, right? Now, who wants to work for an agency? Well, it could be someone who likes to change projects every 3 or every 6 months. So in fact, you could start just using some of these phrases. Coming back to the example, you could say, hey, if you are a PHP developer using Symfony, and you are looking for a vast variety of projects to work on, one of our clients is an agency looking for a developer like you to work on 3 different projects within this year or by the end of next year. Okay, so some developers like to change projects because this gives them an opportunity to learn more. Some developers like to go deeper. They like to go deep in technologies. So you just need to experiment a little and be aware of these personas. For example, just looking at the product-centric company. So some companies are product-centric. They, like my previous company, we have been working on the same product for 5 years. So there were obviously like, say, sub-products, but it was one product the company focused on. So the advantage was that we could go really deep, because as the company scaled, we had to solve different problems. We had to solve scalability issues. We had to solve, say, how to migrate database from one region to another, how to mirror databases across regions. Okay, so these are problems that usually agencies don't solve, because in an agency, they usually just receive some requirements document, and they write the code and deliver it to a client, and then the client usually takes care of the maintenance. So some developers really prefer this product-centric company. They want to go really deep in technology. So it's more hard tech. Well, in agencies, it's more say soft tech. They don't have to go as deep, but they change projects often. So just by having this understanding, you can start iterating the sentence which was here. So if you are and you want, then this is what I've got for you. If you are tired of commuting to your job, and you want to learn more about the new version of Laravel, then I've got for you an interesting opportunity. I've got for you a client who is looking for a developer like you. Like, it depends if you are sending it in a message or you are posting it on social media. Obviously, you cannot write like someone like you because it's on social media where anyone can see it. But certainly, something like this, I'm not saying you have to copy word by word, but something like this increases conversion compared to just look at this email, right? Currently, we are looking for a full stack developer to join an international German e-commerce platform. It's headquartered. It's just one of many examples. We help recruiters rewrite it to make it more meaningful, to make it more catchy. So I've seen lots of these in the last few months. Okay. So eventually you will be able to rewrite a job description like this yourself. So it's usually not enough just to learn about some of these personas, not enough just to learn about some of the technologies, but you need to be able to apply it, which often for technical people, like CTOs or IT directors, it's easy because that's what they've been working on. So often by default, they write a good job ad. And that also may be a reason why developers often like to approach CTOs or IT directors directly, because they can speak the same language. So as soon as you adopt some of these, then you will rise up in their eyes. All right, guys, do you have any question? If I'm just checking the chat. No, you don't have any question. All right. So that's why it's important to lay down really solid, strong foundation, because without the strong foundation, you cannot really, apply it. I tell you about some of these phrases. I tell you about how to rewrite job description, how to have a teaser, how to write more meaningful emails, but without like really understanding the technologies, it's really difficult. And just another example from another webinar just a few days ago, the recruiter said like, hey, I had an interview with a developer, and he mentioned something about a new version of .NET framework, and I didn't even know about .NET framework. I didn't know there are two versions, and I'm like, well, precisely this. Yeah, like you need to know there are two different versions, because then you can talk about it, right? We have this technology map where we talk about different languages and different frameworks. So, for example, looking at C# here, we usually walk recruiters through .NET framework, which is the older one, .NET Core, which is the newer one, Xamarin, which is used for mobile app development. So as soon as we go through it, the knowledge, it's not a rocket science. It's just say several dozens of terms that can be learned. It's not a rocket science. But coming back to the strong foundation, this is the foundation. It's a must in recruitment. It's like, in my eyes, often when I work with recruiters, and I'm like, could you imagine a salesman who would not drive cars, right? Like, how could he sell cars without, test driving it first or understanding something more about the car? People who sell wine, like they need to be able to taste the wine and to understand the different typology of wines, right? So if I could just ask you guys, would you like to join the Recruitment Academy? If you would like to join it, it's actually free. We built this academy with my colleagues, with other CTOs. Actually, Vlad is my co-founder. He's a CTO with, I don't know, he's been in IT for another 15 years. We work with other IT recruiters who share some of the best practices. We interview CTOs, so we work with recruiters and technical leaders, and extract some of the most meaningful insights for people who have not been working or exposed to the IT world. So if you'd like to join for free, you can actually even enroll to the course GR101. So just using this link will get you to the course and the academy. I'll share it now in chat. So just click the link if you'd like. You can create an account, it's free. You can start watching some of the videos. You can enroll in the free course. And if you certainly would like to go further, well, there is really quite a lot we have inside the academy. We, for example, have prepared different courses. So if you would like to go deeper and understand technologies better, so you can talk to developers on one hand, and you would like to understand some of the IT terms, so you can talk to hiring managers, so both hiring managers and developers, then we focus on laying down this foundation, and it's always through the recruitment lenses. So it's not just some generic IT course like how to use Python, but it's always like, what do recruiters need to know about Python? What frameworks are there? What's newest, etc. So we lay down a really strong foundation for recruiters. We have these courses prepared. So first, it's Introduction to IT Recruitment. It's Organizational Design and Teams. From my experience, we actually didn't have this course at first. It's only after we started training some of the teams, we've realized, oh my God, like they don't understand the difference between a product team and an engineering team, and agile teams and squads and chapters, etc. So we're like, oh my God, like we need to fill this gap. So eventually we've added this course to the foundation, and then only then we go to software development lifecycle methodologies. So what do recruiters need to know about Scrum, about Kanban? How to even think about these roles, what to ask them during a discussion, small talk discussion or an interview. And only then we zoom to software developers, languages and frameworks. So thinking about languages and frameworks, this is the technology map that I mentioned. We usually look at say JavaScript. What can JavaScript as a language be used for? Can it be used to build websites or front end or back end or IoT? Like we go application by application and we look at some of these frameworks. So next time someone says React Native, you immediately know it's cross-platform mobile application. If someone says Swift, you immediately know iOS applications. Okay, and here I have highlighted two. So I'll show you an example. For example, Laravel and Zend are two PHP frameworks. So what do we usually look at is this trend line. So this is from Google Trends. We usually look at how popular the framework was on Google, because usually what is popular, well, people search for what is popular. What is not popular, people don't search for. So you can see here on this timeline that around 2006, 7, 8, 9, it peaked. And since 2010, Zend framework's popularity decreases, and now Zend is almost gone, right? Like companies still use it, but it's not as popular by far as it used to be. On the other hand, compare it with Laravel. Like Laravel's popularity started increasing in 2014, and it's been increasing, and now it's peaked in 2019. So again, good to have this understanding, because next time you talk to a developer and you offer him something in Zend, like he could be really surprised, because he knows Zend has been here for 10 years. So maybe you don't even, you don't even accept the client with this legacy technology to save your time. Okay, and then we continue with technical stacks, servers, cloud, storage, testing, QA, and DevOps. Like, this is so confusing. Like, what's the difference between testing and QA? What is DevOps? We don't even go in this foundation as far as like where to find DevOps developers, where to source. I've actually really wanted to start a course on how to source DevOps developers, where to find them. But as soon as I started talking to recruiters, I realized, like, hey, we need to step back a little, and we need to first explain the whole context. Like, how does Agile fit with DevOps? What are the differences, and why do we even have DevOps so widespread? How does it fit into the IT landscape, and why? So as soon as you have this understanding, then you can start hiring DevOps developers. Data, business intelligence, software design, UX, UI. So it's not, none of these are like 10-minute courses. It's usually 2-3 hours long. Some of them are even like 3.5 hours of video content plus workbooks. Worksheets in one workbook. So usually recruiters spend like days going through, like 2 days to 3 days just going through the video content. But then they are just next level recruiters, because they understand these technologies, and it's all explained by people who have been working in IT for years. So just going through, if you like really want to go deeper, then I could totally recommend this. I've actually recorded these videos, all the videos in the courses. So I've interviewed developers, I interviewed CTOs, and then I've compiled it to these courses. So there are these courses like GR 101, 102 until 108, and then I recorded some webinars where we focus on certain positions. They are more advanced, like for example, talking about DevOps. Who are DevOps developers? Who is a junior? Who is a senior? What tools do they use? So they are quite advanced. Just this itself costs $179 if you would like to buy it. Maybe some of you actually are already more advanced recruiters, so you may go to our store and get this one. It's just a GeekRecruiter store. You can go to, I'll send it in chat, https GeekRecruiter. Actually, GeekRecruiter, the word GeekRecruiter, it's like Geek Recruiter, right? So recruit geeks. We help you guys recruit geeks. How cool is it, right? So you can go to GeekRecruiter store and purchase just one of these if you'd like. Like, some of them cost like $50, $40, $50, $60. So the prices differ. They in total cost 681 euros. We have actually a special offer now for 299. So we've seen individual recruiters going through these courses, and it's actually the same content as the teams go through. So we also have teams of recruiters enrolling in the training program, and then usually there is an instructor who answers their question. So it's instructor led, but the content of the course is the same. So you would totally, like, literally level up after going through this content. So this is what you can find in our store. Now it's 299 euros. You can get it using this link. If you'd like to go deeper, maybe some of you just say like, hey, I just want to watch the advanced webinars. It's completely okay. You can go and also in the store purchase the advanced webinar bundle. I'll send you this link also in the chat window. If you guys want to ask anything, you can send me a message either now or just reply to one of my emails that I send you before these webinars, and I'm totally happy to talk about even a group package or team package if you want. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little about also like why others see it so helpful. So for example, Oleg is a recruiter. He was recruiting already for like 2 or 3 years, but still he went through the content and he said like, hey, Recruiter courses are 100% must have for those who start their career in recruiting. Also, even if you already have recruiting experience, you will be surprised by how much more useful information you can find here. So this is just so rewarding for someone like me who has been in IT. And you know, IT is not you know, really exciting. So this is also a way for me to make it a little more exciting, to find an angle and people who really need a little more say guidance, because there is abundance of content out there, right? There are just so many videos, there's so much content out there, but yes, often that's actually the problem, because what to start watching, you know, sometimes the videos are way too long, sometimes way too short, sometimes you have different quality, sometimes no quality. So one of the advantages, what we've seen also other recruiters talk about, is that it's all in one place, and you have like a guide. You just go lesson by lesson, and at the end, you know that you've covered pretty much everything. So these are some of the other testimonials. You can also go to Trustpilot. We have lots of well, I mean lots of, not really lots of, but enough for me to feel like really proud about presenting this product to you guys. So yeah, so these are the three secrets, secret ingredients I wanted to talk about. When I say CTOs use these secrets subconsciously, it's because they have the technical knowledge, they have the technical background, they sort of understand. I'm not saying everyone understands everything, but often the way CTOs write job ads is different, unless they are asked to write a job description. But many of my friends, many of the CTOs I work with, they go and they write like, hey, we're looking for a PHP developer using Laravel version this and that, and you know, this is the environment. They talk a little about the team, about the teammates, who is a superstar, where is the office based, and that's it, right? And that's what developers want to hear a little more about. So that's what you will also find inside the courses, inside the materials. We've prepared workbooks so you can practice some of the. So yeah, I don't want to overwhelm you by everything that is inside the video courses, but yeah, it's really cool. So if you feel like if you would like to, you know, get better at IT recruitment, if you'd like to increase your conversions, if you'd like to be able to attract developers, then I think this is the way. So unless you guys have questions, which I don't see in the chat,